It's been a long road for dirty Dominik Mysterio in WWE. From the terrified child who was at ringside at SummerSlam in the mid-2000s, all the way to the WWE Intercontinental Championship in 2025. Following his legendary dad's footsteps, yes, Rey Mysterio, Dominik is leading the charge for the future of lucha-style wrestling. He's been on WWE programming pretty much non-stop since his in-ring debut at SummerSlam 2020, and he's always generated a massive crowd reaction, whether it's favorable or otherwise. Mostly otherwise. His wrestling career has seen him go from a plucky upstart to a slimy heel to one of the biggest underdogs in the WWE today, with the crowd at WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas going absolutely insane for his victory of the IC Championship in a fatal four-way match. So how did the man who was the most hated and booed character in wrestling end up becoming a low-key underdog babyface on the rise? That, my friends, is what we're here to talk about today. You're watching Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin Kelm, and today we're looking at how dirty Dominik Mysterio may have just become one of the biggest babyfaces in WWE. Before we go any further, though, we got to do the homework. Hit the subscribe button. Help us in our march to 200,000 subscribers. Turn those notifications on so you know exactly when we're dropping fresh content. We would be very grateful. And also, sound off with your fantasy booking of Dirty Dom's future in the comments below. Dominik Mysterio got his beginnings in the WWE during the build to SummerSlam 2005 as a child whose custody was in dispute when Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero began claiming that Dominik was his son, his actual biological son. Guerrero then challenged the valiant Rey Mysterio to a ladder match for the custody of Dominik. Yes, a ladder match for the custody of a child. Only in wrestling, right? Which Mysterio won, keeping the custody of his son thanks to some interference from a slightly valiant, late-to-the-ring Vicky Guerrero and Little Dom himself. This was an infamous angle, one that everyone who watched it in the wrestling world and a lot of people who were intently watching it in the Latin American world had burned into their memory. It's the basis for millions of memes, and likely the reason that people took to Dominik so quickly. They literally saw him as a kid on TV 15 years earlier before he became a legitimate WWE superstar. He was the basis for the most bizarre and unintentionally funny pieces of WWE television in retrospect, but certainly dramatic ones. But also, it is something that is endearing. It was late-end Attitude Era, it was peak Ruthless Aggression days, and Dominik was a child who was a part of that experience. Among some other brief cameo appearances throughout the 2000s, fast forward to 2020, and Dominik is wrestling Seth Rollins at SummerSlam, defending the honor of his family. He lost, but it still looked impressive, and he did this debut with no fans. It was the Thunderdome pandemic days, picking up a win from a tag team match alongside his father at Payback 2020, defeating the short-lived team of Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy, otherwise known as Buddy Matthews. After that, the father and son pairing, which was a special thing to see, became a regular act in WWE's tag team division on television at the time. They even got a run as the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, father and son tag team champs, taking down the underrated Dirty Dogs of Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode at WrestleMania Backlash in 2021. Becoming the first ever father-son team to win a title in WWE is something impressive. They would lose the titles to the Usos later that year, but would still team together. They even faced Logan Paul in his debut match at WrestleMania 38, losing to Paul and his charismatic partner, The Miz. As 2022 came around, Dominik and his dad Rey, along with their ally Rated R superstar Edge, often found themselves the target of the ruffians known as the Judgment Day, who were just villainizing everyone on Monday Night Raw. This same group wanted to slay their former leader Edge and his allies. They tried and failed to recruit Dominik into the group a few times before succeeding. In returning Mysterio at WWE Clash at the Castle in Cardiff, Wales. A shocking, shocking heel turn. Dominik in this scene kicked his own father in the nuts. You just don't do that. That's the family jewels, you know? He then took off his shoes for whatever reason before leaving the ring to massive boos. You don't do that to your dad, Dom. After that, he began to really take on an on-screen relationship with the dominant Rhea Ripley, sometimes alluding to other things, sometimes it was definitely something that turned them into household names and shifted the hell out of a lot of merch and got a lot of casual wrestling fans talking about the innuendo and suggestions of their on-screen relationship. Fans hated Dominik during this time, but in a way that a good heel is supposed to get that heat. Yeah, changing his look to something more darker, more grisly, more sleazy, growing a questionable mustache and mullet to follow, and generally adopting the sleaze. He was leaning into the sleaze for sure. Coupling this with his sneaky, cowardly in-ring tactics, his tendency to hide behind Rhea during pressure-filled times, is when, the shiz really started to hit the fan, not to mention the public displays of affection. And the fans were booing so loud that you could barely hear Dominik when he had the microphone to speak in front of them. Although some of the noise might have been added by WWE production, but some people debate that. Could this guy be that over as a bad guy? I say he is. I saw him live during this time, and it was hard to hear anything he had to say because people were booing him. Dirty Dom, as he soon became known, even got 2 runs with the WWE NXT North American Championship, showing that WWE was going to give him the opportunity to bump up their lower tier developmental show. And he did that. Yeah, he popped the ratings there a little bit, joining his fellow Judgment Day teammates who were no strangers to the gold and black in their own ways. He got himself taken out of jail for disrupting a Mysterio family Christmas, yes, reigniting that issue that you knew was going to be followed up on. He then called himself Prison Dom for a little while. He was in jail for all of a few hours, but would brag about it being some hardening experience. Taking his heat to even more nuclear levels, he tried to settle the blood feud in a grudge match with his own father in Los Angeles, California, with a lot of Latin Americans watching in LA. Though some people felt the seriousness of a father versus son blood feud match at WrestleMania being tainted by the advertisement of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, it was a very, very good match. I remember seeing a beer vendor put down the beer he was selling to yell at the ring. That's how much people were invested in this match. A match that saw Rey Mysterio beat the crap out of his own son for all the right reasons. It was one of the most over stories at that year's WrestleMania outside of the main events. Also, I don't think it's a story that's done. Yeah, at some point they're gonna get back to that, right? Regardless of this, Dominik's on-screen relationship with Rhea Ripley generated a lot of attention. They got people talking no matter what, and whether they had you cringing or booing or wondering why he was treating Rey Mysterio this way, it got people talking. WWE commentator Michael Cole certainly had a lot of his own thoughts on the matter. It was genuinely about as edgy as WWE was going to get at that time, before the days of Netflix and, the regular swearing that seems to be peppered in like a chair shot from time to time. Eventually, though, the relationship between Rhea and Dom disgenerated when Ripley was written off television with an injury shortly after WrestleMania 40 in 2024, causing her to lose her spot in the Judgment Day faction and her on-screen boyfriend to Liv Morgan, that home wrecker, who has also managed to become Women's World Champion in her absence. Since joining their forces under the protection of the muscle-bound Raquel Rodriguez, in more recent times, Dominik and Liv Morgan have been thorns in the side of WWE's roster, none more than Rhea Ripley, who, it's fair to say, hasn't really gotten her complete revenge on the duo more than once here and there since her return. The departure of Mami brought an end to the Judgment Day as we knew it and gave way to the current incarnation of the group, which Dominik Mysterio is still a member of, and a high-ranking member of, by the way. We've actually got a whole separate video on the collapse of the Judgment Day as you remember it. Check it out on the channel. It's great, we promise. Finn Balor, yes, the mentor to Dominik Mysterio in the Purple and Black Judgment Day, is still knocking around the place too, but his relationship with Dirty Dom certainly has deteriorated recently. Beginning with the descent in the ranks of the JD and culminating in Dominik pinning Balor at WrestleMania 41, a loose end that still hasn't been tied up since we started recording this video, which going into Las Vegas got one of the biggest pops of the entire WrestleMania weekend. He was the definitive underdog in a fatal four-way match, which also featured the Red Hot Penta. Dom pinning Balor, a member of his own faction, for some time, was the right choice. A shocking one that managed to get a huge reaction and certainly created a lot of new expectations heading out of WrestleMania. You didn't think they were going to actually do it, but then they did, and it turned out to be awesome. The fans clamored for Mysterio like he was their favorite wrestler in the world. I know, it was surprising to see live, and they spent the last 2 years hating his guts. This was a clear sign of the road of natural organic turn in a character. You simply hate him so much, you grow to love him. It happened with Ric Flair. Dominik has been so consistent in his role for so long that people are starting to love what he does. And they turn from booing him to now seeing him as one of their own. He's carried on the family name, he's getting with the ladies, he's won championships, he's delivered again and again, both in the ring and on the mic. Not to mention that time he cooked Logan Paul on his podcast by bringing the hat, which was genuinely well-timed comedy. He even got a good underdog showing against Gunther, the Ring General, when the Ring General was still the World Heavyweight Champion, which put the idea that Dominik could legitimately become a world champion one day into everyone's head. Yes, it did. Admit it. It would be wild. But the whole underdog factor of him is what makes this all so much more compelling. And such a positive reaction to his win at WrestleMania is undeniable. It's clear that a potential World Heavyweight Champion reign could work, either with Dominik as an underdog babyface or an unlikely, slimy, sleazy heel. When WWE does finally pull the trigger and put an end to the Judgment Day, we wouldn't be surprised to see them go all in on Dirty Dominik Mysterio, possibly as a babyface. We're being subjective. He's not a complete good guy everywhere he goes, by the way. We know that. Though he'd technically be a clean Dom Mysterio at that point, which doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Yeah, they'd obviously have to split him from Liv Morgan, but hopefully not before giving us a long speculated Liv Dom wedding angle. Wouldn't that be crazy? We all love a trashy pro wrestling wedding. It's exactly what we need in 2025. We can even use it as the catalyst for the breakup of the Judgment Day. But that's just a suggestion, a very fun suggestion. At just 28 years old, Dom's got a long career in front of him. A long career with longevity of his father's name behind him. He proclaims himself still the greatest Mysterio of all time. Once again, that still is to be settled. There's probably a few faces we could see him turn into, and hell turns him down the road. A few more title wins too, and we even see him wrestle his father one more time before his father hangs up the mask for good. And maybe, just maybe, if the timing is right, in the right context, we'll see Dirty Dominik Mysterio and Rhea Ripley reunite. Yeah, the Macho and Elizabeth of our generation, just for the nostalgia if you're into that kind of thing. But we'd also settle for a fake out of Riptide out of nowhere, and boom, she slams him. But hey, that's a shameless nostalgia cash-in for another time, and WWE likes doing those as well. Dom's gotta win everyone over first, and if you believe the argument we've made here, he's already halfway there, but he's definitely not putting the foot on the gas to go full babyface just yet. And that's it for this one. Has Dominik Mysterio won you over? Could he become a WWE World Heavyweight Champion one day? Could he be your World Heavyweight Champion? Let us know in the comments below, and let us know what you want to see happen with Dirty Dominik in the future. And by the way, subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling and get us to 200,000 subscribers. Thank you for watching, and go enjoy some chicken tenders.